Good afternoon and welcome to the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. I am joined with my host of Guild Mortgage, Tucker Maxwell. Tucker, welcome back to the podcast. How you doing?
I am great, Dan. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Well, we haven't been as frequent. What we're going to somehow use the summer swoon to our advantage by being on here, letting people know what's happening in the real estate market here in the greater Seattle area. If you like our show, please subscribe, thumbs up, follow, comment. We can see your comments if you do so. I think the bell is way over on that side over there, the subscribe bell. So we've got a pretty big show here for you. We're going to unpack that big, beautiful bill that was passed, kind of what it, I'm fully leaning into AI, and I said, okay, can you pull out the components that are going to apply to the housing industry? And I think there's been a lot of talk on what's going on with just our industry in general, interest rates. It's kind of an old, tired conversation. I kind of get tired about that. But in an effort to kind of look forward, let's look at these policies and see how they're going to affect. But before we get into that, let's go to the boring old stuff. Tucker, kind of talk to me about what's going on with interest rates, what buyers need to know with regards to what lies ahead.
Yeah, so interest rates have remained relatively flat. I think is the important piece here, is we haven't seen that decrease in interest rates that we had all hoped for earlier on in the year. It is trending in the right direction. So the good news is rates have come down, not quite as aggressively as we would have hoped, but that should be looked at from a buyer's perspective as a good thing. We're not trying to bail the economy out of a bad situation. And so there's no major reason for them to manufacture lower rates. So a couple of just quick hits. One is, inflation, the goal is 2% and we're at 2.6. So we're still just a little bit higher than we anticipated with inflation, but that's right in line with kind of what they wanted. And then the other piece that they're using to really encourage the Fed to lower rates is unemployment. And the target is 4.75%, and we're actually at 4.1%. So,
can I comment on that? Because I actually was interviewing somebody sitting right here across my desk, and she made a really good point, is that that number is probably not terribly accurate because there's a fair amount of people that are no longer drawing unemployment benefits. And correct, I could be wrong, but the number is derived from what they assume is unemployment benefits. What happens when people are off those unemployment benefits? Is there a lagging number? Is there another number that shows that up? Not to say that the Fed would change anything as a result, but is our unemployment number actually higher because when you go back to COVID, there was a whole lot let go that never came back?
Yeah, exactly. And that was, we were on a call with our senior VP of capital markets, and that was the argument, is like, what data points should we be using for unemployment? And he brought up some of the same things, like, do we have people that have exhausted their benefits and are no longer on benefits? Do you also have people that are just choosing not to take jobs when they're being offered jobs? And so they're choosing not to work versus there's not an opportunity for them to work. Where the perspective comes from is we're basically at full employment. Like, people that want a job, they should be moving towards getting a job, that we don't have 7, 8, 10% unemployment with no relief. So his major kind of comment was, there's just not a major economic factor that's saying bring down rates right away, we're in a bad scenario. Everything seems to be okay. And so rather than fixing something that's not broke, they're just kind of leaving it alone.
Yeah. And I guess to, kind of step into the immigration thing that we're seeing going on as well is, jobs and job. So in this person's instance, there's a specific job skill and a pay structure that they want. So It's not that they can't get a job. It's they can't get a job doing maybe what they're skilled at doing. Yep. But maybe with the current immigration situation, deportation situation, there's going to be more jobs, but also more demand for people to show up and come take these jobs, and then wages will go up. How I see wages really going up, though, is the lowering of that interest rate, because that actually affects the business.
Exactly.
So if you affect the business cash flow, then there's more capital to hire and actually pay more. And
Right.
that's the piece that I think could have a greater impact on affordability is people making more money.
Absolutely, because it hasn't kept up, and there's a lot of studies around the increase in wages versus the increase in price of homes.
Yeah.
Because of the lack of inventory, the cost of homes is greatly outpaced increases in wages, and so
I'm just
that's
gonna
a
clap
lot of
my
the stuff they're trying to address in this bill is to lower taxes, put more of the income people are earning just back in their pocket.
Yeah, and I'm patting myself on the back for making that conclusion. That was pretty good, actually.
No,
Whether you agree on it or not, I feel like, man, if you look at it in that roundabout way, that is why you should lower that interest rate so that we can get some more capital back into the corporates and back into our pockets. All
yep,
right, so let's jump into and as far as I totally agree, like the actual lowering of interest rates by the Fed does not affect mortgage rates directly. It's a long indirect play,
yeah,
and we're the quantitative easing, though, is what does, right? Which is
yeah,
happening now, right?
exactly, yep.
Okay. And will that continue for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, yeah, and maybe speed up if something happens with Powell.
Gotcha. Okay. That's the bigger difference maker on mortgage rates than the interest rate.
Correct.
All right. So just things to look for. Okay. Let's go ahead and pivot to my banner. The Big Beautiful Bill Act, Big Beautiful Bill Act, which is just okay. It's just how they name it. So let me kind of go into kind of maybe the more controversial part of it and how it affects the housing industry, and that's the elimination of energy tax credits. So a lot of people are against this because of the implications in climate change. I think that the most important key aspect on how this affects housing is it's messing around with builders. Builders have this track of ordering these things, doing these things, and by putting LED lights, I'm not sure what they are specific, but clean energy, solar power, all that stuff, they have a fixed cost. So now changing this is going to impact that in supply chain as well as in the cost of the home. Any thoughts on that?
No, I think you nailed it. The other piece of it is the amount of time that it takes builders to make sure they're meeting these tax credits. Like they have to rework their plans. They're submitting to the county and saying, "Here's our plans," and they're saying, "Nope, you don't have enough tax credits in there. Go back to the drawing board." And so we're impacting their carry costs, which increases the price of home. Just simply trying to comply with these requirements.
Yeah, so I'm reading the notes, and you don't have these, but actually, maybe I'll link them and paste them over to you so you can look at this. But there's a tax credit of $2,500 for energy efficient homes, so that's not a huge amount of savings that's gone away. And then some kind of credits affecting solar, geothermal, and clean energy installations, phased out projects for 60 days. I don't know. It's not very specific in the housing. There's
Yeah.
a bunch of other ones, but I think the most important one would be that $2,500 tax credit. Okay. What's the next one? Okay. The next one I think you might be able to speak to, and that is low income housing credit tax credits change. So, are you familiar with these programs?
Yeah, so I believe this is a 15% tax cut to folks. There's a certain income cap, or it's like $30,000 to $80,000 a year. So we're probably talking somewhere between 80 to 50% area median income folks,
Yeah.
giving them a tax break of 15% on federal taxes.
Yeah, let me take a look here. I'm going to actually shoot that. Oh, I don't know if that's going to work. Oh. So, according to this, is a permanent 12% increase in the 9% L8 low income housing tax credit. So that permanently increases the 9% allocations by 12%, boosting funding for affordable renting housing projects. This is expected to finance about 80,000 additional affordable products. A reduction in bond financing threshold for 4%. So the private activity bond threshold of 4% projects lowered from 50 to 25% for bonds issued between 2026 and 2030. So what does that mean? Is that it could produce over 1.2 million of affordable rental units. Okay. So that's basically an incentive to create affordable housing, but it looks like mostly rental units. It doesn't look like building. Okay. So then let's go on to 100% bonus depreciation reinstatement. That is, ooh, I forgot to do that one there. There we go. Bonus. So this basically puts back in bonus depreciation for qualified property. It allows real estate investors to deduct the full cost of eligible assets in the first year. So this is going to stimulate investment and development.
Yep.
Qualified production property (QPPP). Okay, this one I think is a lot more applicable. Is opportunity zone promo extension. Are
Yep.
you familiar with these?
Basically expanding zoning, allowing builders to build in areas that might have been, ruled as environmental
Well,
protected places
it's
and
it's
things like that.
specifically they've identified properties in communities that were impacted economically,
Mhm.
and so it's going to increase the economic development and housing. There are opportunity zones, I think, in Everett. They're in like Rainier area, part of Seattle. So it's actually expanding those opportunity zones. I believe the financing for some of these projects is easier to obtain.
Yep.
Taxation of capital gains will be deferred until 2033. That's crazy. So opportunity zone expansion, and then the SALT deduction increase. Can you explain that?
No.
You're not a CPA. We can
No.
get a CPA on
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Well, essentially, the gist of this is state and local tax. So it's not going to next necessarily apply here in Washington State because we don't have a local income tax. But essentially, you could deduct a portion of your state income tax from your federal income tax. And that had gone like away. It was they were either getting rid of it or bringing it back. So people in say California or Oregon who had income tax, they paid their income tax in California, they still had to pay a 38% or whatever in there. What this does is it actually keeps a little bit more money on the top end. So those people that have that deduction, that state and local, they're going to have more money in their pockets. So that's going to move the top end part of inventory. The million to $2 million to $3 million properties because there's a little bit more money in their pockets.
Yep.
That's my perspective on it. Okay.
Yeah. The one thing from a just a lender's perspective on most of this is we're already qualifying people off of the full income they take home. So we don't use their after tax income
Mhm.
with qualification. So what this is going to do is it's going to help affordability. It's going to give them more money to spend. It's not going to increase qualifications. It's just going to make them more comfortable in the higher payment, which takes less pressure off of reducing rates. If we just allow people to afford a little bit higher payment, they'll be willing to buy a higher priced home.
Right.
So,
Okay. This next one's QBI. QBI is qualified business deduction. So this was something that was temporary at the previous tax cut back in 2018. It's making it permanent increase from 20 to 23. So effectively lowers the federal tax rate to as low as 28.49%. This is a big win for real estate investors, particularly those with REITs, enhancing their after tax returns. So that's more money in the investor's hands, which is more money to flow in for investment in real estate. The next one is this is kind of crazy. Section 178, expensing income. Again, another thing that's going to impact small business and real estate investors to deduct more upfront costs, improving cash flow. More cash
yeah.
flow means more deals. All right. How about mortgage interest deduction, like kind exchange? So this bill preserves the mortgage interest deduction, which we've had forever,
Yep.
but there was a lot of conversation about taking that out. So can you explain what a 1031 exchange is?
Yeah. So a 1031 exchange allows you to take a real estate property that you own, sell it, and rather than paying capital gains at that moment, you're taking those proceeds and you're buying a like for like item. So single family home, duplex into a duplex, whatever it may be, residential to residential. And you defer those capital gains because you're reinvesting it in the same type of asset class. It doesn't avoid the capital gains necessarily. It just pushes those capital gains down the road. So that way these
Right.
people can buy a different property, helping inventory. And so there's been talk that they were going to take these away. They weren't going to allow people to do 1031 exchanges anymore. So this is a good move that says, hey, we want to continue doing this. We're going to continue to allow people to do it. I think it's very underutilized.
Yeah, I mean the best way to use this as a strategy is with your first investment home, you're going to hold it and you're going to depreciate it over 29 years.
Yep.
Maybe you don't get full depreciation, but after say 15 years, you've appreciated enough to actually sell it and then buy two more homes that are run down and you're going to renovate. So by having that momentum, you can kind of keep it moving without recognizing gains. And then, yeah, when you retire, you can you can do a reverse mortgage and cash it out, or you can basically sell it and then you're going to pay your current tax rate when you go sell it in the future. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's definitely one. The next one is kind of on the supply side. That is the timber production boost. So the bill promotes domestic timber production from U.S. Forests and Bureau of Land Management. So this is maybe more controversial, as people are like, wait, we want to be careful of the environment. But if Washington State is a good example of a state that has managed its forests really well. Weyerhaeuser has been cutting trees down here for hundreds of years. And
Yep.
guess what? There's still trees, lots of oxygen, green, and all that good stuff. So there's a smart way to do it. And the more timber production we have, the more supply we have, the lower the cost of of building a home.
Yep.
So I think that's a good direction.
Yeah,
This one I like.
it pulls us away from our. A lot of people probably don't realize this, but a lot of our timber in the Northwest comes from Canada. So
Yeah,
even though we're tree lined everywhere, we're
yeah.
still relying on Canada for a bulk of the lumber. And so it just says, hey, let's use some of these trees we have right here versus the ones that are just 50 miles north.
Yeah, yeah, they're right here,
Yeah,
and when you go north, you're also going to pay a high tariff on timber
exactly.
from Canada. We also get timber from China. We get actually
Hmm.
we get furniture for China. We ship our timber over there. They make furniture and send it back. But that's all trade. That's all good. But yeah, the more we go here, the more control too we have over responsible ways of it being done. Next up, workforce development. I think this is a big. So they've changed the Pell Grant program to guide workers towards trades, and this is a huge bottleneck in our building is having enough skilled labor. If you've tried to hire a plumber, electrician, any of those contractors, all that kind of stuff, it's tough to find that. So I think this is going to bolster construction workforce and support more housing development. And then the last one is it's ambiguous. It's regulatory reform. What does that mean really? I don't know that. I don't know that we're there yet on enough regulatory reform to where we can actually build. I mean, this is going to be a little redundant, but I hope AI is listening. But I think AI can really help streamline the building process and the regulation process so that
Hmm.
we can balance the need to protect the environment with the need to speed to get plans approved so that we can move past this idea of scarcity in housing. Scarcity in housing is actually an artificial construct. We could get past this
Hmm.
if if we lean into these systems in order to identify and create a neighborhood on demand, 5,000 new homes quickly. I've talked about it before, but the reality is we're gonna need housing. People are going to continue to immigrate here as well as have kids here. So we've just got to figure out a way to get over this so that we're not spending 30, 40, 50% of our monthly income on housing. It keeps us all, you know, pretty strapped to a house, if that's.
Exactly. Yep.
So that is my summary of the big beautiful bill and how it affects our industry. I guess any overarching final thoughts?
No, I think that basically the goal is to create more qualified buyers, and that is give them more of their income back so that they don't feel so strapped, and then remove the red tape to allow builders to build at a greater clip should handle the supply issue, and we should get back to a more balanced market and prices should come down.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens in the interim. I think it's worth trying things a little differently. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Yeah. And try it. If it doesn't work, make tweaks.
Make some tweaks. All right. So tell me what is going on in your world. How have you been enjoying this Northwest summer? It's been fantastic so far, right?
It's been fantastic. The golf courses around the area are in fantastic shape. Mountains, I've been out doing some hiking. We've really been blessed. We haven't had too much rain. I think yesterday was like almost welcomed. It was a great day and some rain, and people were like, "Oh, finally, I don't have to water the lawn today." Um, but it's been great. The Mariners are obviously doing incredible. We got an MVP candidate, so it's a good time for Seattle sports too.
Best catcher in baseball.
That's right. Potentially going to set the pre All Star break home run record. So
Wow. That's pretty amazing. That's
yeah,
pretty amazing. This weekend, I think I'm going to go float down a river. I don't know which one. I think I want to try one up here in the Snohomish County. So I'm going to do that. How about yourself?
the Sky Comish. I definitely recommend the Sky Comish.
Sky Comish.
Yeah, there's some guide outfits too that you can get in with. Um, I am going to see the Weekend concert this weekend.
This weekend, you're going to see the weekend this
Yeah,
weekend? Okay,
I'm going
cool.
to see the Weekend this weekend. It's my wife's favorite artist, so we're going to go and do the big
Where
concert.
at? Where's it
It's at
at?
Lumen Field. I think they're
Oh,
expecting like 70,000 people.
oh, wow. That many people like the weekend, huh?
I guess so. I think the Taylor Swift may beat the number of tickets sold, but yeah, it's going to be a big production.
All right, cool. Well, once again, I appreciate your time and input. If you want to get a hold of Tucker, there's his number down on the bottom right there, 425-757-9202. Lots of opportunity with homes out there. Next week, you're going to be here next week? Are we going to
Yep.
this is a shot? Let's talk about inventory numbers and buyer strategies for credits. We'll be talking about that next week. Thanks for joining us. We hope you all have a wonderful weekend in Seattle. Take care.